All right, guys. Hey, seniors, if you're watching this, this is final prep for those of you who are going to be taking the ACT one more time or maybe twice here in your senior year. You may have already gotten the score you wanted. You may be done. And if you are, then you're pretty good. You're pretty good to go. But there's still some tips on here that you might want to look at when it comes to college. So, seniors, first off, why do you have to take the ACT? And I'm going to be standing off to the side here a little bit so I don't take up too much space. But why do you have to take the ACT? Well, the ACT is a very good example of a test that sets you, matches you against students from across the country. No matter what state you're in, no matter what age level you are, everybody pretty much gets the same exact test. Okay, so they have you go up against students from not only from your own school, but from your own state and from other states. It's a very good barometer. That way we don't get different forms of the test or anything of the sort. The side effects of your ACT score. Research has shown that every score you increase your ACT score by every point you go up, you're going to knock on average about $2,700 off your college tuition. Now, that could be different for different people. Someone who's at a 29 and they go up 5 points to get a 34, they're going to knock a lot more than $2,500 a year off. They're going to be going to college for free now, once you're at 34. That's a night and day difference. So it changes for different people, different scores. But on average, you're looking at about $2,700 for every score you go up. Okay. Now, you're going to be taking tests your whole life. I tell people that. So some people get test anxiety. That's perfectly normal. We're going to talk just a hair bit about that. But you're going to be taking tests of this in a lot of professions. Okay? You go to law school for 8 years. You pass. You want to be a lawyer. You still have to pass the bar exam. Doctors still have to take tests. Accountants. The law changes all the time when it comes to accounting. They have to learn new things and take new tests every year to keep their license. So those are examples, and there's numerous other professions that I'm not even mentioning. Teachers now have to take tests. Principal, you want to be a principal, you have to take a test. You have to know the law, you have to know the rules. The testing never ends, that's the point, okay? So, ACT score versus grade point average. Well, we've had a major change here in Gretna Public Schools here in the last year, right? So this year we have a 90, 80, 70, 60 scenario. Let me run you through a fictional scenario and why the ACT score is very important. And, I'm not dissing grade point average at all, but let me give you an example. Let's say we have a fictional student here who got 92% in all of their classes last year. Last year, according to our grading scale, they would have gotten B's or 2s, okay, in everything, and their grade point average would have been 3.0. This year, that same student who's got 92 in every subject has a 4.0. They have A's in all subjects. So here's my question to you. Is that student who scored 92% exactly last year and this year, are they so much smarter? Because according to their grade point average, they are. That's why the ACT score plays a part. Because some schools, it's much easier to get a 4.0 than it is other schools. So when you have the ACT score, that is a fair play. And I see it a lot, okay? And I'm not going to badmouth any schools or praise any other schools, but there are some schools, students who have come to my help over the years, asking for my help. Oh, I'm a 4.0, but my ACT score is a 15. And then when I help them, my first question is, how is this student a 4.0? So you've got to take your skills and use them appropriately. Okay, let's get to it here. Now, just to run through a couple guys. Hey, I even helped a couple students last year. Here's Calvin Jansen. He's a great example of a poor test taker. Smart kid, but did not like tests. They stressed him out. Didn't know how to study the best either. I called him out on that. Okay, showed him a few things. He improved his score 9 points. He improved his ACT, from his pre-ACT to his ACT, improved 9 points. All he had to do was learn a few tricks along the way, and the test was much easier for him. Then you have someone like Grace Ritchie last year, who was a 4.0 from the beginning. She's always smart. She knows everything, right? But the test anxiety got the better of her sometimes. And so she improved her score 5 points once she learned to kind of get around how to manage the ACT and not get too caught up or think she has to be perfect. because she's always very smart. So her score improved 5 points. So you can definitely improve on this. So if you're a senior and you're like, hey, I got a 22, do I really need to do any more? Well, depending on what college you want to go to, you probably don't need to do any more. Need might be a strong word. But if you improve your score from a 22 to a 26, there's going to be more scholarship money for you there. That is guaranteed. And so it's a money scenario. Okay, let's move on here now. We're going to do a quick run through of the ACT with just a little tip of each of the 4 sections. Nothing major here because we only have about 20 minutes, right? So it's going to be quick, it's going to be easy, nothing earth-shattering, but just this little trick might, in each section, might improve you by a couple points. So there have been some recent changes, some major changes to the ACT, and you guys are right in the middle of it. So you guys who took it as juniors last year here at the school, right? That was the last test that stayed that way. This past summer was the first time they tried it out. And they made some major changes to the test as a whole. There are 4 major changes, and we're going to talk about them here briefly. All right? Change number 1. The English section used to be 75 questions in 45 minutes. There used to be 15 questions in each passage. Now it's only 50 questions in 35 minutes. So, I know you don't want to do the math here, but this comes out to be like 1.6 questions per minute, and this comes out to be about 1.42 questions per minute. So you actually can go at a slower pace and still get done. Here's the one thing I have, now you guys are going to laugh at this, and rightfully so. I'm a nerd. I've taken the ACT test, practiced, sat myself down and taken it 83 times. I have taken the ACT test, okay? So I have gotten good at this. I have watched students, thousands of students, take the test. Here's one thing I'm seeing on the English section, without question. Everybody gets done early. And when they get done early, there might be like 8 minutes left to go. Well, you know what that student does then with 8 minutes left to go? They sit there, close their booklet, and then just basically fold their arms and do nothing. That's an insane mistake. Go back through it. If you have 8 minutes, read through a few questions again, maybe just take one passage, go back through that, look at the confidence of your answers. You know, you don't have to be critical of yourself, but look back and see, hey, would I put this again? Am I choosing the right answer? You can never be too safe. Okay, that was change number 1. Change number 2, math questions. Math section used to be 60 questions in 60 minutes. It was a sprint without question, okay? It is now only 45 questions, and you get 50 minutes. So you actually get a little more than a minute per question. Not a gigantic difference, but the fact that it's only 45 questions, I think, helps. So I've seen a couple practice versions of the shorter versions, right? Here's one thing I've noticed on the math section. It gets a little harder a little sooner. When it was 60 questions, the first 20 were usually pretty easy. A lot of pre-algebra and algebra 1. Now you might see geometry or algebra 2 already on question 8. So it picks up a little faster. Okay? Nothing to be scared of. Everything you see, the test is still mainly pre-algebra, algebra 1, geometry, and algebra 2. There are out of the 45, there's going to be about 4 or 5 questions that are trig/pre-calc level. And so those are the ones you're going to have to watch out for. If you've never taken trig before, well, that's not fair. How do I know those questions? That's right. So in the math section, make sure you dominate the pre-algebra and algebra 1. And we're going to go over a strategy here in a few minutes that I'm going to show you, and you're going to be like, let's see how you do. And then I'm going to show you how much easier and how much faster you can go about things. Okay, change number 3. Here we go. Reading section used to be 40 questions in 35 minutes. Now it's only 36 questions, and you get 40 minutes. You actually get more than a minute per question. It used to be 8 minutes and 45 seconds per passage for 10 questions. Now you get 10 minutes per passage, and there's only 9 questions. So they have shortened that up a little bit as well. Reading, in all my years, reading is by far the hardest for students to complete on time. And I will speak from a personal standpoint. I'm not the fastest reader, so that's the hardest for me to make sure I get done on time. And I've done it so much, insanely over the years that I usually do get done on time. but there's a couple times for sure where I cut it close. Change number 4, the science section is still 40 questions in 35 minutes. That has not changed, but the science section is now optional. When you sign up, you no longer need to take it. So, this last point here really comes into play for those of you who might be looking at, oh, here's my score, but my science was by far my worst. My science really dragged my composite score down because my science, my math was maybe 23, English was 24, reading was 24, but my science was 17. You are free to take it again and not take the science section. You can get a higher ACT score that way. That might make a difference in terms of your admission, might make a difference in terms of your scholarship availability. So just something to think about. You know how, like when we took the school-wide test, they have the writing section. And that is a requirement, right? The writing, when you take it personally, the writing was not required. When you take it personally, the science section will no longer be required. And you get to make that decision when you sign up. So when you register online, they want you to say, are you planning on taking the science section? Yes or no. You have to make that decision ahead of time. All right? Just something to think about. But those are the 4 changes. So they have definitely shortened up. Okay. Now, those of you who have taken it before, you kind of know this, but we'll just kind of walk you through. What happens on test day? Hey, I love the ACT test. I think it's a great barometer of not just a student's academic level, but also your grit and determination to get through things. Because there is going to come a time when you sit down and take a test for 3 hours, you are going to be mentally exhausted at some point. You're going to hit a wall. It's inevitable. Okay? It's the same thing if you can compare that to a lot of sports. If you go out and you run a marathon, there's going to be some point during that marathon where you mentally hit a wall and you want to quit. And you just want to stop. And you got to get over that mental hump. Same thing with the ACT. There's going to come a point in time where you tend to stare off or you just kind of get sidetracked. And that's the part where you got to really hang in there. Okay? And I tell people, that's the key moment during the test. You have to get aggressive and struggle through the tough times. It will be more than worth it. We've all been there in whatever activity, a class, a physical activity like basketball practice. You run sprints, and once it's over, you're glad it's over, but you're also glad you made it through it, and you're better because of it. Same thing will happen on the ACT as a whole. All right, the test process. Okay, just reviewing here in case you are unsure. Here's a rundown of how it goes, the exact sections. The English test will be first. Okay, now shortened to 35 minutes. The math test, shortened to 45 minutes. After you take those 2, you'll take about a 10 to 15 minute break, depending on where you take the test. Usually it's about 10 minutes. But once you take that 10-minute break, they sit you down and you take the reading test, and then you finish with the optional science test, if you take it or not. The one thing I tell people is, and you kind of laugh, but it's true, during that reading test, during that 10-minute break, that's where you want to get up and do something. You don't want to sit there and sulk in your chair. Get your body up, get it moving. Just like when you guys are in class, there's a minute left and everybody stands up early and starts moving around. Same thing during that 10 minutes. Get up, walk down the hall a couple times, get your body moving. That will be a good thing. All right, so we're going to go over here now quickly. We're going to go over one strategy in each of the 4 sections. If we run out of time here, we'll finish it next week. But the first strategy, here's English, right? This is what I call the KISS method. Where I come from, that was always keep it simple, stupid. Well, I can't say that. So I'm going to say KISS method is keep it short and simple. If you apply this strategy, I can guarantee you your score is going to improve in the English section. It's the number 1 strategy to improve your score in the English section. Keep it short and simple. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. You'll get a question like this, and it'll say, like, the people who are in charge, and this is the part they'll underline, the people who are in charge of buying for the company, we're meeting out in front of the building, and they give you these choices. Now, get in the habit right here and now, when you see something this long underlined, and they give us much shorter, much more simple answers, there's going to be a change. This is a prime example of when I was in high school, and the teacher said 350-word essay. greatest invention they ever came out with was when Microsoft Word started counting the numbers down in the corner, and I'm like, oh, I was so excited. I just typed as fast as I could until I got to 350, and then as soon as I got to 350, I pretty much quit, right? That's why my writing scores were bad. Some of you are guilty of that. So here's what we want to do. We don't want rambling words. We don't want this. So we're going to make a change here for sure. The people who are in charge of buying for the company, that's the buyers. That's all you need to say. Now, product buyers, buyers of products, I know they don't sound the best. We don't necessarily pick on sound. We pick on short and simple. So the correct answer there would be buyers. That's all it is. The buyers were meeting out in front of the building. Game's over. Next one. More creations appeared at more than a few additional places where literature and artifacts. Now, go ahead and take a look at this. And these are all exact copies of past ACT questions, okay, that I have basically taken from past tests and show you as examples of implying this strategy. So here we go. You look at this one right here. You look at B, C, right away, I want you to start with the shortest possible answer and see if that one makes sense. And if it makes sense and it flows smoothly, the game is over. You do not need to say, well, I better check C and B. No. And here's another trick the ACT does. Very often, they will put the best answer, the simplest answer, the shortest answer last, because they want you to read these big, long, rambling things first and get confused. Always start with the shortest answer first. And if it makes the most sense and it flows smoothly, the game is over. Stop what you're doing, move on to the next question. Don't say, well, I better make sure this one. No, this long one doesn't sound better. You don't have to do that. So the correct answer there would be D. You see that now. More creations appeared at several libraries and museums devoted to books and writing. Game over. Next one. Okay, here was one that I took a picture of the test. Now, get in the habit of this. There was whatever slash, colon whoever. That was horribly used. And now these are the three choices. Disregarding the unknown identity of the person who. See, that's the rambling crap. That sounds like something I would have said or typed years ago. Without consideration of or concern about whoever. Even Christmas. Regardless of who created the art. It's short, it's simple, you go with it. And surprise, surprise, look where it was. Last answer. Okay? Here was another one. Now, this is number 29. You see this here. And this is going to be actually two strategies in one. Keep it short and simple. Some of you only read the underlined parts. I know you're guilty. Don't do that. Read the whole thing. Okay? So they talk in the previous sentence here, they talk about Pollock's project sponsored the vessel's launch in Portugal. There. Where's there? In Portugal. During the boat's successful journey on the Douro River, in the country of Portugal. You're repeating information. You don't need to tell me that. I already know that's good. So that kills option B right away. I don't need to know that I already know it's in Portugal. You've already told me that. That it's a river. No kidding. And it's in Portugal. I already know that. You see how I'm keeping it simple? D is the correct answer there. We don't need to pick something that sounds fantastic. We need to keep it short and keep it simple. Okay? Last, we'll skip this one because we're a little short on time, but I'm thinking you're starting to get the hang of this now, right? I guess we'll go with it real quick. 53. Boom, boom, boom. You look at this, and right away, look at that. You pick D, and you see if it works. Ice physics. Okay, the observatory has also advanced scientists' understanding of clouds, comma, ice physics, comma, and the atmosphere. Correct answer, D. You can move on. And now, this is our last one. Here's 63. I mean, I have taken the test so many times that when I see this, I don't even need to read the question. I can tell you right now the answer is D. Stay away from those long, wordy answers that input commas and all this stuff. Keep it short, keep it simple. All right? That's where we are. We ran out of time. Sorry if we ran out of time. We'll look at next week when we have some math strategies, some reading strategies, and some science strategies.